Yuki Tsunoda sent a fierce warning regarding his position in Red Bull, or more precisely Racing Bulls, as the entire Formula One world felt enraged that it was Lawson who was promoted over the Japanese driver, with only 11 races of experience compared to the 4 years of Yuki. Now, having a new rookie next to him in Hadjar, Tsunoda will make sure to put Lawson under the same pressure he applied to Perez, and considering the experience difference with the former and the current Red Bull driver, it shouldn't be that hard of a mission for Yuki. But will this finally convince Red Bull to move in the direction of signing the Honda protégé, or are they moving towards their academy and their roots for the greater good of things? Yuki Tsunoda is one of the most underrated drivers on the grid because of what he's shown in the past couple of years, and on top of that, he was still snubbed for the Red Bull seat compared to Lawson, who received a 6-race stint in the ending stages of 2024 to prove that he can go against Yuki in a proper manner. Of course, Yuki outqualified Lawson 6-0, and the only reason the Austrian team picked Lawson was because of the versatility that he's shown by racing in categories like DTM and Super Formula. Still, this is not enough of an excuse for Tsunoda, who will be aiming to prove to Red Bull that they made a horrifyingly wrong decision to not promote him in Perez's seat. And even though he accepts part of the blame because of his performance in 2024, he is adamant that the team now has fewer excuses if 2025 goes his way. When talking about it, he said, "In 2024, even though I did well, I felt that I did not get the credit that other drivers were probably given. But that is the way it was, and I'll just have to keep doing what I'm doing. Go strong on the track and prove the team wrong. I just have to give Red Bull fewer excuses or reasons why they didn't put me in that seat. I will focus on what I can control and accept everything else. I'm sure I can do a better job than they think I can do." Of course, the pressure has already been mounted by Marko and Horner, with the latter one stating that Hadjar's test times in Abu Dhabi's post-season session were faster than Tsunoda's, and he turned some heads in the F1 paddock. It's just a downfall for Yuki when it comes to gaining the trust from the Austrian team, even though they were adamant that the choice between him and Lawson was literally brought in at the last second, and it was very, very close in terms of competitiveness. But even though Yuki has 4 years of experience, we must remember how he boded with Gasly. He was crash prone for the majority of 2021 and 2022, and only started to get recognition from 2023 onwards. Outperforming drivers like De Vries, Ricciardo and Lawson have put him in a different league, and he continued where Gasly left off, even though he is still far from scoring what the Frenchman did in a pretty average car, even winning a race in 2020. Yuki understands that the connections with Honda are too much of a burden when it comes to his commitment to Red Bull, because the departure is bound to happen in 2026, and with Honda partnering up with Aston Martin, it's obvious that he will be considered as a solid candidate for that seat now that the aging Alonso is nearing retirement. On top of that, Tsunoda will be able to race in a car that could win races, and while his teammate would definitely take the team lower in the Constructors' Championship, it's a massive help for the drivers category, where Yuki could be miles ahead of Lawson, for example. There is no doubt that the pressure on the Kiwi driver is going to be greater than ever, and Horner has been adamant that Yuki is here to pick up the pieces if something goes horrifyingly wrong with Liam's debut. Marko, on the other hand, believes that Lawson shouldn't worry about beating Verstappen, because that is what all of his teammates have tried in the past and seen their hopes being crushed. Instead, he set a goal for Liam: be 3/10 separated from Verstappen if you want to keep your seat alive. That is a soul-crushing statement for Lawson, because if you think about it, his chances to compete at the very top have been publicly shattered before the season even started. It's not like anybody expected him to beat Verstappen, but to say it out loud in public is definitely not helping your agenda. So Yuki, being Yuki, filled with motivation to prove to Red Bull that they've been terribly wrong about their choice of promotion, Well, it's all going to be very interesting to see how he'll stand up compared to Lawson now that Red Bull needs a very strong second driver in the Red Bull seat. But according to the Japanese driver, the fault can be found in himself as well, because he didn't perform from year one in the sport, as I mentioned earlier in the video, and that might return to haunt him in the foreseeable future. The first 2 years saw the worst version of Yuki on the grid, full of swearing, tantrum throwing moments, and anything but competitiveness and compelling work with his engineer. When talking about it, Tsunoda said, "I think the fact that Red Bull didn't consider me for 2025 is partly my fault too, because I didn't immediately perform without difficulty in my first year in Formula 1, and that gave a bit of an image of who I am." Nevertheless, here we are, and the goal is loud and clear. Beat the rookie Hadjar to the point of him having the team considering replacing him mid-season, and challenge Lawson so frequently that Red Bull would have to think twice about whether or not they've made the right choice in terms of promotion. You could make the argument that Yuki deserved the seat more because of the experience and the knowledge he has regarding Red Bull's machineries, but as he said, the first impressions matter the most, and in this case Lawson is far better compared to Yuki. What is another huge challenge for Yuki is the fact that he would have to fight against the first impression of Hadjar in an F1 car, and the Frenchman is adamant regarding his goals: beat Tsunoda, and nothing short of that. The time that he will spend in an F1 car might as well be limited to a very short extent, especially if Tsunoda crashes his hopes with a dominant performance from day one in 2025. But Hadjar believes in himself and believes that he didn't come to this level by coincidence. When talking about it, he said, "I know that my experience in F1 is limited. There is a very high level on the grid. In the end, I know myself. I know that when I get in the car, I will want to beat Tsunoda. That is the only real thing, especially in this category where we don't have all the same car. It's the only real objective I have in concrete terms. Entering a world like this is a bit scary, but I will keep my desire to succeed, to win, and I also want to channel my emotions. I know which team I am in. I know they don't like the radio button too much. The fact that I have trouble visualizing this shows how special this adventure is for me. To be honest, I am scared." Be that as it may, the situation is all but over in Red Bull, and in the next couple of years we're going to see some massive changes in the drivers' lineup, because Liam will have a lot of ego to fill with his drive, and the fact that he will go against a four-time world champion as his teammate is a massive challenge that he may not be overcoming anytime soon. On top of that, he has pressure not just from the Racing Bulls drivers, including Hadjar, but also from the internal circle in Red Bull, and considering the fact that this is a team that can barely fight the internal wars in peace, Lawson could find himself in a crossfire and be expelled because of some poor results that could as well be written off to the design of the car. With all this in mind, what do you think about Tsunoda's latest statement regarding Red Bull's seat? And more importantly, do you think that if he is not promoted to the second seat next to Verstappen, he will be the leading candidate to swipe Alonso's seat thanks to Honda's influence, and then prove to his former team that yes, he does have what it takes to be a top-notch driver? Let us know in the comments below, and if you're interested in Ferrari's latest decision regarding the 2025 season, make sure to check out the video that's appearing on your screen right now.